Hello, and thank you for having me speak as part of the Synaesthesia and the Student Symposium. I'm Caitlin Mkhasibe. I'm a multimedia artist and drummer based in Capetown, South Africa. I'm not a synesthete, however, parts of my work focus on the intersection of sight and sound. I'll be discussing the processes, the mediums I've used, and why I've chosen to keep my artworks monochromatic. Since high school, I have been a drummer. While studying at the Michaelis School of Fine Art at the University of Cape Town from 2012 to 2015, I have played in a band called Morning Pages, doing 2 live performances a month. The performances were soundscapes to projected video and stop-motion visuals created internally, which mattered more than the musician's visibility to the audience. Until the COVID-19 pandemic, Morning Pages played at various exhibitions, theatres and live music venues in South Africa. During my studies at art school, I was curious about ways of merging sound with visual art. I am not a synesthete, but learned of simulated synesthesia while doing my own research on the intersection of sight and sound. Neil Harbison, the first self-acclaimed cyborg, has an implant that reads color as sound to help navigate his color blindness, and that was of interest to me. With the help of guest lecturer Nick de Grief, I then did a web-based project where Harbison's favorite sounding artworks were displayed as he sees them in black and white, and when the viewer hovered over them with a mouse, they could hear the tones of the various colors. The choice of focusing on the auditory and how his lifestyle might differ from mine as a visual artist was intriguing to me, where, for example, Harbison chose outfits that sounded good. With this inspiration in mind, and after attending an artist presentation at the art school by James Webb, a South African artist who creates sound installations, I then further created monochromatic sound art during my time at university, notably lowest hearing frequency range in 2013. Using water and light cymatics, I made a video response to the low vibrations animals hear that are inaudible to humans. The installation was displayed at group exhibitions such as Bring Your Own Beamer in 2014 at Brunden Plus Gallery in Cape Town, translations in 2015 on a San Francisco-based online artist platform called Emergent Art Space, and in 2016 at the Nandalal Bose Gallery in the Rabindranath Tagore Center, Indian Council for Cultural Relations in India. In 2015, as part of my art school grad show exhibition titled And Then There Was a Subterraneous Hum, with special thanks to Matt Jones, I created an installation on noise pollution in the ocean. And that was influenced by the imagery of sonar. I used that and its texture, the grain of it, as a visual language. Videos of my illustrations were displayed in a room where you could sing to a whale and it would sing back. In 2015, I was one of 8 drummers recorded for Untitled with a Sound of Its Own Making, a solar-powered multi-channel loudspeaker system and audio as part of James Webb's 2 solo exhibitions titled Ecstatic Interference in 2016 at Blank Projects in Cape Town and We Listen for the Future in 2017 at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park in Leeds. For the Synaesthesia and the Student Symposium, I've created 3 monochromatic artworks that are my interpretation of the intersection of sight and sound, as a form of simulated or synthetic synesthesia. 2 of the artworks were created outdoors in Cape Town, South Africa. They are titled Sonic Portrait of the Sea, done at Kreeftebaai or Crayfish Beach, and Sonic Portrait of a Mountain, done at Silvermine Nature Reserve. And the third one is a collaboration I've done with my partner and artist Hello Samo. It's a sound work as part of Drone Day. My work focuses on gestural mark making as a form of visual language. I focus on the expressive rather than the figurative. I'm inspired by sci-fi that talks about nature and ecology. The surrounding landscape in Cape Town is beautiful, and the texture, the natural texture of that landscape is what I use as inspiration. And this further influences themes about conservation and empathy in my artwork. I'm inspired by the lack of human communication within nature and how animals communicate with each other and the sound of that communication. These works are monochromatic and they mimic previous works I've done in university. The work's mediums consist of charcoal, chalk, vegan acrylic paint and ink, brush, masking tape, and gel pen on 300-gram honeymeal paper. Pertaining to the sea and the mountain, I picked spaces that were of solace to me, particularly during the lockdown. I acknowledge that these spaces are quite a drive to get to, and I also acknowledge the privilege that I have in being able to access these spaces. In post-apartheid South Africa, access to space and race are still very much so interlinked, even 28 years after its abolition. Portraits of the sea and the mountain are a compressed version of three-dimensional spaces. These spaces represent three-dimensional mapping of panoramic sound on a two-dimensional space. With the first artwork, being at the sea is very encompassing compared to listening back to the audio. The L shape of charcoal lines are the continuous cars from the road behind me. My audio device couldn't pick it up, but my recording device could pick up the sound of the marks that mimic the waves created by my charcoal. This is a percussive element created by me. I'm joining in to nature's symphony. Imagine I'm at the center of the artwork. In front of me is the white noise of the waves, mimicked with a brush and white acrylic paint. At one point, there was a loud motorcycle among the softness of the cars. Prior, to save time, I made blotches with a spray bottle and ink bottle of the memory of the sea. I was not sure if it would be windy and how difficult it would be to paint if there was sand blowing around. Dogs were barking, their owners conversed, panning from right to left, trailing off at the end of the artwork. At one point, a jet ski went by, and a crow. Mark making, layered on top of another, meant its sound stood out to be more. The smaller the dots, the softer or shorter the interval of time of that sound. The bigger the brush mark, the louder the sound. And part of the sonic element of this artwork is me verbalizing it to you. Moving on to Sonic Portrait of a Mountain. Mountains are located in between major suburban areas and the surrounding major city. Fynbos, rock formations, bird life, hiking and cycling trails are all found there. Again, this is another location that is quite a drive to get to, and in doing so, I became very aware of my own contribution to noise pollution. This artwork is portrait instead of landscape. Sitting up on the rock, facing the mountain and facing the cars, I did ink washes to represent the first thing I heard, which was the constant wind. As opposed to being drowned out by the ocean, this time the constant rushing of cars was prevalent. I could also hear crows, a man walking his dogs, yelling at them, the crunch of his trainers on the ground, and the moving reeds next to me. The frogs clicking in a nearby stream, and the plastic bag covering my artwork. The sound mapping of this artwork is also spatially related to where I can hear everything. I found the frogs were louder than the cars, the crunching of feet was louder than that, and also, when using chalk, it mimicked the sound of the cars. There is an element of chance in reacting to organic sounds and placing them within a two-dimensional space. There's something quite surreal and cubist about that. Within documenting sound, at some point I have to choose to stop. And this can be a visual decision based on the composition that seems to be arising from the situation. Nature is expressive, expansive, and meditative. It's difficult to represent an infinite thing. Whether I'm in a natural space or not, the sound will continue to be there. It's my own exercise in ephemeral history making to decide when it feels right to stop. It's experimental, and it's always a play of different materials working together. The third artwork made for the symposium is a visual representation of a collaborative sound work done with artist Hello Samo for this year's Global Drone Day event, coinciding on 28 May 2022. Synaesthesia, or Sensor, Sonic Exploration Network South Africa, is creating a compilation of participating musicians, which will be live streamed on Hamshack Radio and a UK streaming service on the day. The link to the sound work is in the chat section, or you can find the link in the description of my artwork in the virtual exhibition section. Thank you for having me be a part of the Synaesthesia and the Student Symposium. I'm really honored and appreciative of being able to talk about my artwork on the intersection of sight and sound.